10. Courtney Alice Callahan. In April of 2024, police in Bushnell, Florida responded to a call about a driver who was asleep behind the wheel of a white sedan on an Interstate 75 exit ramp. A responding deputy arrived at around 1 o'clock in the morning to find Alice Callahan snoozing away with the vehicle running and in park. It was her 28th birthday, and she had apparently partied a little too hard. The deputy knocked on Callahan's window in an attempt to wake her. She failed to roll the window down, despite being repeatedly asked to do so, prompting the deputy to open the car door. He asked Callahan to step out of the vehicle and requested her ID, insurance, and registration. But instead, the young woman tried handing him a pile of cash. When the deputy asked Callahan why she was giving him money, she reportedly said, "Is my cash not an incident?" And, "You asked for my incident, my cash, and everything." She confessed to having one shot of tequila that night and denied being intoxicated. And she even went as far as saying that people offered to buy her birthday shots and that she declined them all. But for obvious reasons, the deputy suspected that she had drunk more than she was admitting to. After refusing to undergo a field sobriety test or a breathalyzer, Callahan was booked into the Sumter County Jail. She was released 9 hours later with instructions to return to court at a later date. 9. Vanessa Castrillon. During what began as a routine traffic stop for an improper turn in Lake Forest, Illinois, in November of 2023, a woman in her 20s named Vanessa Castrillon told a police officer that he was hot and accused him of stopping her because she's a Latina. Instead of handing over her ID at the officer's first request, Castrillon flashed a wad of cash and bragged that she was a businesswoman. Then, seemingly out of nowhere and for no apparent reason, she called the man riding in her passenger seat a derogatory term. Castrillon continued to brag about her success, asking the officer if she knew how much money she made per year. But the cop was far less interested in her finances than she was. He arrested Castrillon on suspicion of driving under the influence. According to an arrest report, Castrillon spat on and kicked the police while she was being taken into custody. Body cam footage showed officers placing her in the back of a squad car while she writhed and resisted. One of the officers sternly warned Castrillon that she would incur additional criminal charges if she broke anything in the car, but she continued to act out. The bizarre chaos continued at the police station, where Castrillon asked to use the restroom, threatened to urinate in her pants, and did neither of these things. She also tried taking her shirt off in the middle of the station and got the garment stuck over her head. Castrillon was booked into custody on suspicion of improper turn, felony aggravated battery on a peace officer, and resisting a peace officer. The case appears to be ongoing. 8. Russell Norris. Late one afternoon in June of 2023, a Georgia man named Russell Norris crashed his Chevy Tahoe while allegedly driving drunk on a bridge in the city of Rome. Officers arrived at the scene to find the vehicle overturned in the middle of the road and surrounded by debris. Witnesses reported seeing the SUV weaving in and out of traffic at a high rate of speed in the moments before he struck another vehicle. He then lost control of the Tahoe and struck a bridge, carving a gaping hole in the structure. Norris fled the scene on foot and was found walking near a Taco Bell restaurant a short while later. He reportedly confessed to drinking a half bottle of vodka before the car crash and told police that he was on his way to meet a woman at the time of the accident. Officers noted in their report that they smelled booze on Norris's breath, and he was taken to the hospital for a blood sample. The outcome of the case is unclear. 7. Matthew Viviano. Just days before Christmas in 2023, Ogama County, Michigan Sheriff's Deputy Matthew Viviano was pulled over for swerving and driving on the wrong side of the road in Roscommon County. He told law enforcement that he was on his way home from work, but declined to undergo sobriety tests. When Viviano stepped out of the vehicle, he appeared to have some trouble remaining steady on his feet. After initially downplaying the amount of alcohol he had consumed, he admitted to having 3 beers and 3 shots, claiming that he stopped drinking an hour before he hit the road. A preliminary breathalyzer tested his blood alcohol content at 0.27, which is nearly 3.5 times the legal limit for driving, and legally qualifies as super drunk, which carries heavier penalties than a standard drunk driving charge. Viviano was taken into custody on suspicion of operating with a high blood alcohol level, marking his second off-duty drunk driving charge in a decade. During the previous incident, which occurred in 2013, Viviano called in sick to the Hazel Park Police Department, where he was working at the time, and crashed his truck. The vehicle overturned and landed on its roof, but Viviano walked away unscathed. It was his first time ever getting in trouble with the law. Following Viviano's more recent drunk driving arrest, Ogemaw County Sheriff Bryant Gilbert confirmed that the deputy had worked that day and said he was investigating to determine how much time had passed between when the deputy left work and when he was pulled over. Viviano pleaded not guilty to the drunk driving charge and was placed on unpaid leave pending the outcome of the case. Several months earlier, Viviano had been acquitted by a jury after being accused of assaulting a man with autism at an assisted living facility. The outcome of his current case remains to be seen. 6. Yandivi Chavez Dominguez. During the early morning hours on Easter Sunday in 2024, a drunk Florida man drove his car into the water at the South Point Park Inlet in Miami Beach after mistaking it for a road. Local resident Andres Asian later told NBC Miami that he heard a loud noise outside his apartment at around 7 a.m. After realizing a car had driven into the water, he dialed 911. Asian then ran outside and saw the driver swimming towards safety. A young man confirmed that he was the only person in the vehicle, and Asian said that he could tell the driver was intoxicated. In addition to being lucky to be alive, the driver was fortunate that he didn't hit anyone when he veered off the street and into the sidewalk and boardwalk, where the car avoided hitting people by just feet. Police identified the Toyota Corolla's sole occupant as 22-year-old Yandivi Chavez Dominguez. Luckily, he was uninjured. Dominguez reportedly admitted to driving while intoxicated and showed obvious signs of his inebriated state while talking with police, including slurred speech and bloodshot eyes. He also failed a sobriety test. The car was towed from the water, and Dominguez was charged with driving under the influence. The outcome of the case remains to be seen. 5. Osnubil Escobar. 29-year-old mother of 3, Tiffany Alexander, was driving home from a park in Winter Springs, Florida at 10 a.m. one morning in May of 2024 when a drunk driver ran a red light and drove her vehicle at nearly 80 miles per hour, 129 kilometers per hour. She died from her injuries. The accused drunk driver, 25-year-old Osnubil Roberta Escobar, was arrested on suspicion of homicide while driving under the influence. Escobar allegedly reeked of alcohol and had glassy, bloodshot eyes as he explained to law enforcement that she was on her way to her bartending job and was running late. She said that she'd gone out drinking after her shift the previous night, claiming that she only had a shot of Jägermeister and a cocktail before she went home at 2 in the morning. After leaving the bar, Escobar went to a friend's house where she slept until 7 a.m. The women ate buffalo chicken wing dip together until Escobar realized she was running late for her job and left for work. According to an arrest report, Escobar had a blood alcohol content of 0.386, which is dangerously close to what the Mayo Clinic considers to be a potentially lethal level. Winter Springs Police Chief Matt Tracht told the press that he was shocked that Escobar was able to stand after drinking so much alcohol. After spending 2 weeks in jail without bond, Escobar's bond was set at $100,000. She was released to the supervision of a family member who vowed that she will not be allowed to drink alcohol following her release. Her case is ongoing. 4. Raymond Barrantes. Shortly before noon one Saturday in September of 2023, A sheriff's deputy in San Joaquin County, California, noticed a suspected drunk driver. He alerted the California Highway Patrol, and an officer pulled over the driver, who just happened to be a fellow member of law enforcement. Just a handful of years earlier, West Sacramento police officer Raymond Barrantes had won an award from Mothers Against Drunk Driving for his high number of drunk driving arrests. He now found himself in the hot seat as he was taken into custody on suspicion of drunk driving. According to his superiors, Barrantes was off duty and was driving his personal vehicle at the time of his arrest. He was placed on paid leave pending the outcome of the case, and while an internal investigation was carried out, the outcome remains to be seen. When asked by local station KCRA3 for her take on the incident, MAD spokeswoman and program specialist Lori Bergenstock said that she's constantly surprised by the people who get arrested for drunk driving. But she acknowledged that it's an across-the-board issue that hits every work situation. 3. Melissa Kelo. British teenager Melissa Kelo knew she was too drunk to drive when she got behind the wheel of a car in October of 2021. She had just finished playing drinking games at a party with her friend, Phoebe Johnson, and her cousin, and had initially decided not to drive before changing her mind. Kelo even joked about how she was knowingly putting the other young women's lives in danger as she pulled out of the driveway, perhaps unaware that this was precisely what she was doing. 15 minutes later, Kelo struck a curb at 72 miles per hour, 116 kilometers per hour, causing the car to spin out and roll off the road. The car's occupants could be heard screaming in terror in dashcam footage as Johnson was thrown from the vehicle. After the car came to a rest, Kelo realized Johnson was gravely injured. As she lay dying, Johnson asked Kelo about her condition. Kelo tried to reassure her friend, who succumbed to fatal neck and head injuries later that day. In January of 2023, Kelo pleaded guilty to causing death by careless driving. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and banned from driving for 6 years. 2. Carmen Guerrero. 23-year-old Cameron Harridge and her roommate Sarah House were riding in a vehicle with several friends just blocks from their apartment in Dallas when a pickup truck rear-ended them at a red light in February of 2024. The crash caused a multi-car pileup, and House died at the scene while Harridge and 4 other survivors were rushed to the hospital with injuries. Witnesses reported seeing a woman who seemed extremely drunk fleeing the scene on foot. She left her wallet behind at the scene, leading police to identify her as 27-year-old Carmen Guerrero. According to law enforcement, she was driving 70 miles per hour, 113 kilometers per hour, in a 35 mile per hour, 56 kilometer per hour zone at the time of the crash. Guerrero was charged with manslaughter, collision involving death, 5 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and 5 counts of collision involving serious bodily injury. Nearly a month after the hit and run, Cameron Harridge was still in the hospital on a ventilator, fighting for her life. 2 months after the accident, she had finally started breathing on her own, offering a hopeful glimmer of progress toward the possibility of an eventual recovery. In the meantime, Guerrero remains held without bond at the Dallas County Jail. If convicted as charged, she could face up to 50 years in jail.
And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content.
1. Malcolm Butler. 34-year-old retired NFL star Malcolm Butler is best known for carrying the New England Patriots to victory with a last-minute interception during Super Bowl 49 in 2015. He made headlines for far less flattering reasons in March of 2024 when he was arrested on suspicion of drunk driving in North Providence, Rhode Island. According to a police report, an officer pulled Butler over at around 3:30 in the morning. Butler reportedly claimed that he was on his way home from a music studio in Providence. the officer noticed a distinct odor of alcohol and other possible signs of intoxication, including extremely slurred and delayed speech and severely bloodshot, watery eyes. When the officer asked Butler if he had been drinking, he replied, "Just take me to jail." He refused to undergo field sobriety tests and was booked into custody on suspicion of driving under the influence and refusing to submit a chemical test. The current status of the case is unclear.
9. Massive supercar seizure. Following a 2-month-long investigation into stolen luxury cars in 2022, investigators from the California Highway Patrol raided the North Hollywood home of a 39-year-old man named Vade Chavushayan. They ended up seizing at least 35 vehicles from his backyard, including Aston Martins, Bentleys, BMWs, Jaguars, Land Rovers, Lexuses, Mercedes-Benzes, and Porsches. Authorities also uncovered a criminal marijuana growing operation consisting of more than 400 plants. An illegal gun was also discovered on the man's property. So they took Chavushayan into custody on suspicion of being a felon in possession of a firearm. Officials revealed that Chavushayan was accused of fraudulently buying the cars from unsuspecting dealerships in Southern California. The vehicles had an estimated cumulative value of around $2.3 million. Some of them were reportedly involved in other crimes in the area after they were stolen. The vague coverage of the case poses a lot of questions, including why Chavushayan wasn't charged with any crimes directly related to the alleged stolen cars and was only apprehended on a gun charge. When the YouTube channel Donut Media reached out to the police to try filling in some of these gaps, an officer reportedly said that the situation wasn't a clear-cut theft case, but an elaborate and organized case of fraud. It's not likely that it was a one-man operation, and more investigating was required at the time of the bust. Unfortunately, it's unclear where the case stands today, and it's not known if Chavushayan was ever charged in connection with the supercars. 8. Stubborn driver smashes Lambo. Reckless supercar drivers have become such a problem in South Australia that lawmakers are passing legislation that requires owners to have a special permit to drive certain models, in addition to a standard driver's license. The law was introduced in 2019 after a Lamborghini Huracan hit and killed a young woman, and the legislation is currently still in effect today. In 2022, another Huracan driver refused to pull over for police during an attempt at a routine traffic stop for speeding. A dangerous chase ensued, with the Lamborghini driver reaching speeds of up to 130 miles per hour in a 43 mile per hour zone. A skilled driver behind the wheel of a Lambo could easily outrun a standard cop car, but this motorist lost control of the vehicle and smashed into 2 other automobiles. The driver of the Huracan fled the scene on foot with the passenger, while the other people involved in the accident stayed behind to talk to the police. Luckily, nobody was seriously hurt. Law enforcement soon caught up with the suspect and took him into custody on suspicion of 7 crimes, including a police assault count. The Huracan was severely damaged in the wreck. Several airbags were deployed and the exterior was visibly banged up. And while it's unclear what became of the car or its owner, Auto Evolution pointed out in its coverage of the case that Australian authorities have a penchant for seizing expensive cars from crime suspects and selling them at auction. So there's a chance that it found new ownership and was restored to its former glory, but we may never know for sure. 7. Out-of-control convoy. In most parts of India, the only places for supercar owners to test the limits of their vehicles are public roads, where street racing and reckless driving are illegal. Of course, the law doesn't stop some people, and the problem seems to have grown in recent years. During the earliest days of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, the owner of a Lamborghini Gallardo lost control of his car during a race in Bangalore and crashed into one of the last structures most people would ever want to hit with a vehicle, a police kiosk. 28-year-old amusement park owner and entrepreneur Sunny Sabharwal smashed into the small building at a high rate of speed, leaving a gaping hole in the wall. Bystander footage showed that he was riding in a convoy with several other supercars at the time. He tried to pull off a stunt after passing through a traffic light, only to realize the hard way that perhaps he's not as good of a driver as he thought. Nobody was present at the stand when the collision occurred, so Sabharwal took the opportunity to pose in front of the debris with a big smile on his face. He posted the image on social media, but soon deleted it and turned himself into the police, who seized his India limited edition Gallardo LP5502. The model was released exclusively in India in 2013 to commemorate Lamborghini's 50th anniversary. Only 6 of the ultra-rare cars were ever made, selling for over $500,000 each. Sabharwal is a well-known influencer and appears to have moved past the incident. 6. Maserati misery. While parts of southern Florida grappled with the disastrous aftermath of Hurricane Ian in 2022, a trio of teen boys found a Maserati with the keys inside and decided to take it for a joyride. 2 deputies in a passing helicopter spotted the theft in progress and alerted their colleagues on the ground. Law enforcement tried to catch up with the teens, who assumed they were about to be chased and sped off. They were apparently unaware that the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office has a policy against high-speed car chases, which are known to put lives in danger over crimes that often aren't very serious. Sadly, the young men crashed into a building at a high rate of speed, killing one of the passengers. Another one of the teens was rushed to the hospital in critical condition and wasn't expected to survive. The driver was wounded from the wreck, but he made it in the end. Photos of the accident's aftermath showed the car upside down and crumpled up on the pavement like a crushed soda can. Fox 13 reported that the teens' parents had been trying to guide their troubled sons onto the right path. They were shocked to learn that the young men weren't in bed when the police showed up to deliver the terrible news. 5. Serial scammer snatched from Porsche. In 2022, a flashy red Porsche pulled over on a roadside in Singapore's Little India neighborhood. Shocked witnesses watched as a white Audi pulled up behind the Porsche and 4 men leapt out of it. They then forced the Porsche driver to his knees and into their car in broad daylight before speeding off. Investigators later found out that the kidnappers held the victim for ransom in an attempt to recover a large amount of money he swindled from them in an e-commerce scam. The Porsche driver, 29-year-old Andrew Lim Zi Kai, is allegedly a serial scammer, and his dishonesty backfired on him in a major way when he bailed on an agreement to sell a $48,000 Rolex for one of his abductors. When the watch's owner tried to retrieve the Rolex, it was nowhere to be found, and neither was Zi Kai, so he decided to track the scammer down personally. The fact that the fraudster drove a brightly colored car that was impossible to miss most likely made it easy for his captors to find him. It's unclear how long the kidnappers kept Zi Kai, but they eventually let him go. Shortly after that, authorities charged the man with an unrelated fraud case and announced that he could be facing as many as 9 other charges relating to his alleged scams. The abductors were also arrested for their accused roles in the kidnapping. According to the most recent updates, Zi Kai remained at the center of an ongoing investigation. 4. Hit and run rampage. Supercar enthusiasts were horrified in 2020 when footage surfaced online of an ultra-rare Gambala Mirage GT wreaking havoc in the streets of Manhattan. The bizarre campaign of destruction began during the early morning hours when the driver smashed into a vehicle in Hell's Kitchen on April 7th. He then crashed into several more cars before coming to a stop and being apprehended by police. The driver didn't lose control of the car, but instead, footage showed that he deliberately rammed it into one vehicle after the next while speeding through the streets and blowing through red lights. At the time, the streets of New York City were eerily empty due to coronavirus lockdown restrictions. This was likely the only reason nobody was hurt during the unprovoked rampage. When all was said and done, the luxury supercar was in pitiful shape, leaving people wondering why the driver would destroy such a nice and expensive vehicle for what literally seemed like no reason. He wrecked the car like an old toy he was sick of playing with, even though only 25 Gambala Mirage GTs were ever created, with each one costing up to $800,000. When video of the incident surfaced, many speculated that the car was being driven by a thief. But the legitimate owner, Benjamin Chen, was the culprit behind the wheel. By then, he already had a history of wrecking supercars, including a Bugatti Veyron. Authorities charged Chen with operating a vehicle under the influence and reckless driving. With so much video evidence, one might think it would be a slam dunk case, but the charges were dropped in 2021 apparently due to a lack of evidence. Writing for Jalopnik, automotive journalist Lawrence Hodge speculated that Chen got out of trouble because he has money. It certainly seems plausible, and it's more believable than the prosecutor's claims that they were unable to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Hodge wrote that he hoped the owners of the damaged cars sued Chen so that he would be held accountable and some form of justice would be served. 3. Fake Ferraris. In 2022, Italian authorities caught a 26-year-old man driving a fake Ferrari in the country's northwestern region. Agents from the Guardia di Finanza, the agency that deals with financial crime and smuggling, discovered the phony supercar in the town of Asti. The vehicle was identified as a Toyota MR2 coupe disguised as a Ferrari F430. It had been modified to closely resemble the real deal and was covered in Ferrari badges. The vehicle also had genuine Ferrari parts, but it failed to pass when it came under the scrutiny of highly trained eyes. Some internet users were impressed by the imposter's skills, but Italy takes deep pride in the quality of its luxury and exotic cars, and a knockoff is simply unacceptable. The driver of the phony Ferrari learned this the hard way when he was charged with using registered trademarks without authorization. His arrest came amid a months-long investigation called Operación Cavallino, which sought to uncover a scheme that involved fraudulently acquiring supercars and taking them to Spain. The operation successfully blocked at least 75 medium and high-end supercars in their tracks and froze 44 bank accounts for suspected illegal transactions relating to the scam. Also, a whopping 23 people were detained. This wasn't the first time someone got arrested in Italy for having a fake Ferrari. In 2008, authorities seized 7 replicas, along with evidence that buyers knowingly bought the phony vehicles so they could sport an upscale appearance for a fraction of what a real Ferrari costs. It's unclear how many of the fakes were sold before the operation was busted, but it was clear based on the size of the illicit operation that it was highly organized and profitable. 2. Politician's wife crashes birthday present. In 2016, a high-ranking Indian politician gifted his wife a brand new Lamborghini for her birthday, only for her to crash it just moments after getting behind the wheel for the first time. Narendra Mehta was a member of the Legislative Assembly in Maharashtra state when he surprised Suman Mehta with the luxury car, which comes with a price tag well into the 6-figure range. He posted photos of Suman getting ready to take the Lambo for a spin, but his boasting backfired just moments later when Suman tabbed the back of a rickshaw with the vehicle. The rickshaw sustained minor damage, but thankfully nobody was hurt. Suman avoided criminal charges by compensating the driver for the cost of the repairs. Footage of the collision almost immediately appeared on social media and went viral. Narendra Mehta stood up for his wife, writing in a post that she had over 20 years' worth of experience driving luxury import vehicles. Some accused him of downplaying the incident, but he seemed to think that people were being overly dramatic about it. But as of recently, petty social media spats are likely the least of the couple's worries. In 2022, the Mehtas were accused of illegally amassing a suspiciously high amount of assets, including the Lamborghini, which was specifically listed in the complaint against them. Simply put, the couples purchased far more assets than their reported income can afford, and they have a lot of explaining to do for it. 1. Supermodel submerges supercar. Soraya Vucelic exploded onto the modeling scene in 2011 as Playboy's Serbian Playmate of the Year. She's seen major success since then as a supermodel and influencer, but she also made headlines for a less glamorous reason in 2019 when she accidentally drove a Lamborghini into a swimming pool. Vucelic was vacationing in the French city of Cannes when she decided to take the Lambo out for a spin. While it's unclear who the blue car belonged to, it's likely that the owner wasn't too happy when her high heel slipped, causing her to miss the brake and roll into the water. The world-famous bombshell posted footage of the smashed-up sports car being lifted from the pool in a harness, with visible body damage. Instead of being embarrassed about the expensive mishap, Vucelic took a humorous approach and owned up to the mishap. Commenters were equally comical in their responses, with one social media user sarcastically writing, "Don't worry, it happens to everyone."
Thanks for watching. Would you rather crash your car beyond repair while drunk driving and not get caught but have no car? Or would you rather be pulled over for drunk driving and spend 2 nights in jail with a DUI on your record? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.